So Saints recover from going a goal down to take all 3 points at Leicester. 2-1 the final score. Steve, I'm going to come to you first this week. A huge victory and desperately needed. You must be pleased with that one.
Yeah, great result. And I think it's one of those sort of fairly rare occurrences where the fixture has kind of fallen at a very kind moment for us. Because, I mean, you look at the headlines that Leicester are generating off the pitch at the moment. It's basically like that. They seem to be recreating the Ronald Koeman training ground photo of basically all of the players just vanishing. Where you've got Wesley Fofana, who wants out and was left out of the squad completely on Saturday. Seemingly, Yuri Tielemans doesn't seem to want to stick around too long, and he was only on the bench. So yeah, they've got some issues there.
It's nice to see it happening to somebody else, isn't it?
It does make a pleasant change, but I would kind of temper that with I'd actually quite like there to be interest in our players because it shows that you're doing something well. So it's one of those where when you're a certain size club, if you are getting picked at by the bigger clubs, then they obviously see you as a threat. So I mean, let's be honest. We would all give our right arms for the trophy haul that Leicester have pulled in the last 6 or 7 years. So yeah, it was. I mean, it was an excellent turnaround. Played well enough for the most part. I mean, I think the first hour or so was kind of a non-event. Really, there wasn't an awful lot going on in either box until James Maddison opened the scoring. But after that, we showed the urgency that we needed to and created the chances that we needed to. Two great finishes from Shea Adams. Almost got a hat trick in injury time as well. And I mean, surely that performance off the bench, given that he was only half fit, and I think we all kind of accepted that he was probably only going to be able to play 25-30 minutes given his lack of training this week. I think that puts to bed any talk of Shea Adams leaving, surely. Because yeah, I mean he's the guy that's found the back of the net and got us up and running, really.
Yeah, you'd like to think so. Glenn, what did you make about this new resolve and desire that the squad were showing yesterday?
Well, it's another slap in the face for the Daily Mail, isn't it? So 2 games running where we've been behind, and the team that's not playing for the manager has come back and got 4 points.
It's the best thing they could have done for us. Yeah,
absolutely. I'm sure we'll see a retraction in the paper at some point in the near future. Not. So no, it was great. Where's it come from? I mean, it is interesting that the bench has had such an impact over the last 2 games. I'm loving the the camera's always panning to Ralph talking to the guys on the bench. The Richard Kitzbichler's more involved now, which is interesting in itself because he was sat in the naughty step with Kelvin Davis and all that lot last year. He's obviously been encouraged to step forward, and Ruben Sellers is stepping forward as well. And yeah, so at the moment, when they're making the substitutions, even the relatively mad-looking stuff like Lianco going in midfield seems, it's all sort of paying off at the moment. So yeah, bring it on. And whilst we were all a bit sceptical about the 5 subs thing, it does seem to have given Ralph something to think about, and he does. I think we're getting to the stage now where it's going to end up like a bit like rugby union, where it's going to be starters and finishers almost, and we're almost moving away from this, this football concept that we've had for hundreds of years, where. Well, not hundreds of years because we didn't have subs then, but where we had a starting 11 and we had subs who weren't good enough to be in the starting 11. I think we're kind of moving away from that. Joe Aribo last week being the case in point, where he was left on the bench to do a specific job later in the game. So, maybe we're going to go down that route. But if you've got a squad where the players on the bench are as good, if not in some cases better than what's on the pitch, you can affect games later on. But it's just really interesting that we've finished the last 2 games strongly, and as anyone who's followed Ralph's tenure will know, that's never been the case.
No.
We've been the team that's got to 70 minutes and died.
There's plenty of graphics that Sky have got to prove that as well.
Yeah. Yeah,
Well,
so,
I mean, we must be top of the points won from losing positions table this season with 4.
Makes a change, doesn't it? Alfie, Rouse had his critics, myself included, after the last couple of games, but it felt yesterday that he certainly got most of the calls, if not all of them, right.
Yeah, I sort of echo some of the same thoughts that Glen had, really. Of course, it was a difficult week last week. He couldn't resist having a dig at it in his press conferences because he was hurt by it, and it did affect him. He is a manager that claims to have a good group around him, and I thought his team have responded. He's responded, and we mentioned the finishers, the subs. I mean, it's simple to point out that Che Adams, made the difference yesterday, and it was the same at Leeds. It was the 3 substitutes that came on and affected the game. But what I was really impressed with Ralph yesterday was his agility in the match. In the first half, he made a couple positional changes. So Joe Aribo and Moyo Yunusi swapped positions when Leicester were dominating the first 20 minutes, and Joe just sort of steadied that ship in the midfield. And Sekou and Adam Armstrong did the same thing, the left and the striker position. And I think that's something that we probably haven't seen from Ralph enough, is him willing to change his plan after 20 minutes, 25 minutes. And, people will say that Ruben Sellers is up there in the technical area. Maybe he's in his ear and he's saying that this isn't working. But whatever it is, it's working. And that's what you want from your manager and his coaches. So I have to give full credit to Ralph. He came out in his press conferences after and he was really delighted, but he wouldn't accept credit. He's always going to pass it on to the players, as managers should do. But yeah, I thought it was a really impressive management performance.
Let's talk about Che Adams, because I think we need to start with the positives. We're looking at the moment in the transfer window for a proven goal scorer, someone with a bit of experience that can bang in some goals. You're right, Steve. He's not going to be going anywhere in this window, is he? That was a really good half an hour from him yesterday.
Yeah, he shouldn't be. And I think part of the issue with Che is that we've seen that sort of impact before. And I think the key to him being a more consistent and more rounded footballer at this level is being able to replicate that on a more regular basis. I think we're all fairly accepting that he's the sort of player who should be getting into double figures, but at the moment, possibly any further than that is going to need a little bit of work. And let's be honest, he needs to be in a team that creates more chances for him. Because it's not as if like last season we were creating loads for him and he was just missing them all. He was scoring a pretty good proportion of his chances, and yet he ends the season with I think 7 Premier League goals. Which, I mean, if you've got 4 or 5 players who are getting 6 or 7 goals apiece, absolutely fine, not a problem. You can get away with having a kind of non-scoring centre forward, if you like. But when you're in a team that relies so heavily on James Ward-Prowse scoring direct free kicks and sort of other long distance goals on a regular basis, then I think you need other attacking players to step up. And obviously he's done that yesterday. Hopefully that's a sign that he can possibly then kick on for the next couple of months and see where we are in sort of October, November time before we break for the World Cup. Which
I know you were impressed
sounds weird
as well.
Saying that.
It does. It doesn't sit right, does it? We were having that chat in the pub at lunchtime. Glenn, I know you were impressed as well. He was unlucky not to get a hat trick, which would have been awesome.
He was. It's not just the goals. It's great that he gets the goals. It was the second he came onto the pitch. I think the first action after that was either one of the centre halves or Bazunu kicking the ball long, and Che just held off Johnny Evans, I think it was, brought the ball down, set the play going. What I've noticed with him this season already, I know it's only been two times he's been on the pitch. He's not the tallest, but he's a big unit in the. Sorry, this inappropriate thing to say. His legs are enormous. His backside is enormous, and he just is this big unit that, and he seems to be playing to his size this season. And I've not always seen that from him. Sometimes last year he would just get brushed off the ball, whereas there was a real intent when he came on the pitch that he was going to bully the defenders. Now it's one of the if we go back to the Spurs game, one of the problems I had with our defending is that we weren't imposing ourselves on the attackers and we were just letting them do what they liked. And that's something I'd like to talk about later on about the way our defence really got in the faces of Leicester, Leicester's attacking players yesterday. But Che came on with an intent. I'm going to make it uncomfortable for you. you're going to have to foul me, or you're going to have a really hard time. You're not going to have a free ride. And he did so much in that half an hour on the pitch yesterday, other than just scoring the 2 goals and hitting the post at the end. I thought it was a really proper centre forward, almost old style centre forward performance out there. And the goals are the reward. And I like the fact that he did the Ayoze Perez celebration at the end, taking that on from Jack Stevens from a couple of years ago. So you can tell I've just been on Leicester Fan TV, where all they wanted to talk about was the 9-0 again. And it's just stop it, lads. It's boring now. Boring now. We've beaten you twice at your ground since then. So
plenty of comments coming in about Che. Actually, one that he was skipping about like a gazelle yesterday. Alfie, we know that he is a confidence player, and Ralph said once famously that he's like that bottle of ketchup, and once it starts, it doesn't stop. So, can we expect a few more goals? He's certainly going to be key, I think, going forward.
Well, I mean, I'd love to say yes, but I mean, it's impossible to say yes because, of course, we've seen it before with Che. But actually, again, I agree with Glenn, not to just echo his thoughts all afternoon, but if he's going to get on the pitch and put himself about, I thought he did the same thing that Glenn mentioned against Leicester, against Leeds, where he's got his back to goal, he takes the ball down and he plays it off, and then Adam Armstrong went on the left-hand side, put it in, and Aribo scores, game on. If Che's going to do that every single game, he doesn't need to score. He gets 7 or 8 goals again, but he's doing that all the time. Then Saints are going to have chances, they're going to create chances, they're going to score goals. And I think I spoke to Carl Walker-Peters after the game yesterday, and one of the things he said was, look at the size of Che. Glenn's absolutely right. He's massive, and he can put himself about. And let's hope he does. He's a confidence player, but I absolutely believe that maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, the club probably would have taken the right offer for him. I think Martin Semmens said that as much himself. He said that every player's got a price, but I think now, after 2 weeks later, I don't see how you can think that. I think you have to build your team around him. Let's hope he's fit again on next Saturday.
That was almost a perfect response from him, really, wasn't it? I think to those kind of rumours. And then you got pictures of Ralph hugging him after the game and patting him on the back. He was the first one he went out to. So it's great to see. I must say, Steve, as well, a long throw from Salazar that worked for a goal. I never thought I'd see the day.
it's our one for the season, obviously, after Ward-Prowse scored against Spurs last year.
Of course.
But no, I mean, that one actually looked as if it was entirely planned. The way the ball dropped at Bella-Kotchap's feet, and he instinctively knew, right, I'm laying this off inside, only about 2 or 3 yards, but it was perfectly weighted into Che Adams' stride to hit it in.
Adams had peeled off, hadn't he? Because originally the long throw was aimed at him, and he peeled off, left it to Bella-Kotchap, and then smashed the ball in the net. So as far as I'm concerned, that's another one to chalk up to the new coaches, because that's Adams' movement.
It's designed, isn't it?
Yeah, it was clearly designed. And,
I mean, also helps that you're playing against Leicester, whose record of defending set pieces is obviously famously abysmal. I mean, it's just I just don't understand how a team that has been so good can just fall apart so willingly. I mean,
next up, Manchester United.
Well, yeah.
There's a theme. I want to talk about the defensive unit as well, but I think first, before we do that, we should probably just talk about the formation, because we were all, I think, sat here last week saying he's definitely not going to abandon the back 5. We're going to be playing with 3 centre backs. So, was that a surprise to everybody, Alfie, when you got that team sheet through? Did you think he was going to go with the 4 at the back and put that confidence in Djenepo?
Yeah, I was told about the team the day before, and then I spoke to Adam Blackmore in the press room in the morning, and I was saying to him, I've been given this. It's allegedly a 4-3-3, and we were both saying, well, we don't really believe it. We don't really expect Moussa Djempo to be playing left back. But that being said, Ralph said that he was going to see if he was going to trust him. I mean, Ralph's answer to every question is we will see. He says that so often, so you never really know if they're actually going to see or not. But look, Moussa played really well, and I think we're definitely going to see that again on Saturday. I mean, there's absolutely no doubt in my mind that he will be left back. Remain, even if he's fit, will probably have to earn his way back in now. You know what Ralph's like with trusting players and loyalty. So I would say that I wasn't surprised necessarily that it was a 4, but I was surprised it was something new again. I mean, how many times has Ralph tried something new now in the last sort of 5 or 6
was
weeks?
it 4-3-3, 4-5-1? It seemed sort of fluid at times.
Yeah, it did. It did change, and people who understand the game far better than I do will say that it was a 5 in possession and a 4 out of it. But there were 3 attackers at the top end of the pitch, and to me, that's a 4-3-3.
The only thing I will say is that I think he was talking about a reset and that might have been in some of the press conferences that you were at, Alfie. It just surprised me that after 2 games we were talking about having to have a reset already. Was it? I was surprised that they hadn't tried these formations during pre-season more. He just seemed adamant that he was going to play with that back 5.
I think he just felt that he had to. I think, he felt they didn't have the options to play with the 4, and whether he didn't trust his fullbacks. So, whether Mustafi didn't trust, or whether it was a case of, I don't really want to put Mohamed Salisu and Bella-Kotchap in a 2-man defence. And we've seen Jan Bednarek and Salisu in a 2-man defence, and that doesn't work. So maybe he felt he had to. He tried it, it didn't work. And then I guess at Leeds, I think he'd have felt a bit of a wrath. Not that he cares what people think, but there'd have been a lot of questions if they lined up with a 5 again after what happened against Leeds last week.
Oh yeah, I had my tweet ready to go. I was all up for that at 5-2, so I was quite surprised. Glenn, let's talk about Moussa Djenepo, because we've all given him his fair share of stick, haven't we, over the course of the last 12 months? But a lot of people saying, Centre Gully on YouTube saying man of the match yesterday. A lot of people saying actually he's really stepped up and he's putting the yards in.
Yeah, I mean, we said it last week. He's learning a new position on the job. And especially in a back 4, it's a very disciplined position, and defensive discipline is not something you'd associate with Djenepo, having watched him for 3 years.
Not if you've watched him like we have.
No. And you can see his brain working sometimes. It's like, I've got to get back in position. I've got to get back in position. And he does. And for the first time yesterday, I thought he looked defensively solid. I think against Leeds, he was great going forward, but defensively, nightmare. But he actually looked good. And maybe it was the fact that, in a flat back 4, he's not in that sort of position between defence and midfield, which a wing back tends to be, and we play the wing backs high as well. So it is a little bit difficult probably to know where you're supposed to be all the time. But when you're fullback, when you're defending, he knows he's got to be next to where Salisu is, and only push up when we've got the ball, sort of thing. So yeah, I can't fault him. I cannot fault him the way he played. He's, you worry that there's going to be a ricket around the corner where he does something dumb, but the same applies to the 2 lads at centre back as well, because they're young and they might do something rash as well. But yesterday it worked, and hopefully the penny drops with Moussa is that's how you stay in the team. That's how you get a new contract, because he's out of contract at the end of the season, I think.
Yeah,
and that's what he will be working towards. But again, I think he's, it may be that Perrault comes back into the team when he's fit, but Moussa for me has earned the chance to play further forward. Certainly ahead of some of the others that we sort of play in the wide positions. I think he's definitely gone up the pecking order there. So putting these performances in at left back will certainly count in his favour, come the day that Perrault's fit, or maybe he'll stay there all season. Who knows? But we'll have to wait and see.
Well, Luke says Moussa was solid again, even in a back 4. Long may that continue. Let's talk about the defensive partnership then, Steve. Obviously, Moussa Djenepo on one side, Kyle Walker-Peters looked more comfortable knowing that there wasn't that space behind him. But then Salisu and Bella-Kotchap, great partnership yesterday.
It worked eventually. I think first 15-20 minutes, Vardy gave Bella-Kotchap a little bit of bother down that channel. I don't think he was quite sure what to expect. I mean, as much as Vardy's getting on in years, but he still has that burst of pace, and he's a very clever striker. And when I say clever, I mean he's an absolute cheat and knows how to get away with it. And Bella-Kotchap didn't fall for any of that nonsense. Took a little bit of time just to kind of size it all up. Perhaps a little bit fortunate that Leicester didn't really have any sort of momentum built up in the first half to kind of take advantage of that early situation. But once he kind of got his head around it, Vardy offered nothing, and was he taken off just after the hour?
Yeah,
having not really contributed a huge amount. So yeah, I mean, can't complain with how that partnership went. I mean, the centre back partnership wasn't responsible for the goal. So essentially from open play, we've kept a clean sheet in a game that we conceded 4 in last year. So huge improvement. And I mean, I don't even think the free kick that was given for the goal was even a foul, to be honest. Having seen it back, I think he just wins the ball, hooks his foot around him, and the guy goes over. It looked a fair challenge to me, but no, I think that's very promising, and probably less promising for the future prospects of Jan Bednarek. I imagine.
Well, we'll get on to transfers in a minute, but that's on. There wasn't. I made a note of the world class centre back that missed out yesterday because of transfer speculation. And,
Jack Stevens.
Yeah, there's a couple of them, wasn't there? Vanessa says Lavia was also brilliant versus Vardy, and Alfie. Just final thing on the defence from yesterday. Were you impressed with that pairing at the back? Do you think we're going to see that again going forward? Could that be the one? Do you think we found it? He stumbled across it.
Look, there'll be another game where we look at it and their performance and it isn't the one. Of course it is, but that's a club like Southampton. It's not going to be 9 out of 10 every week. But just to add on to what Steve said, I think Jamie Vardy had 11 touches in 65 minutes yesterday, and 7 of those came in the first 15 minutes. So that was when he was terrorising Bella-Kotchap, and he could have had a couple of fouls there. I thought Armel was a little bit lucky actually with some of them. But after that, that's 4 touches for the next 50 minutes of football. They completely isolated him, and Iosi Perez, who always scores against Saints, had 1 shot in the game. I thought it was really impressive. To me, it looked like Mohamed Salisu was relishing not being the one that has to go out and attack the ball every single time. He was more. To me, he was a bit deeper. He was playing the firefighter role that Ralph famously described Jan as a couple of years ago, and it was Armel that was getting out. And I just feel like he was a little more comfortable knowing that he didn't have to sort of get there, and it wasn't Jan behind him. It was him just sweeping and clearing.
That's interesting. If he's going to be more comfortable doing that, then that certainly bodes well. Just a quick one on the free kick. Mark says, I agree with Steve. The ref was con for the Leicester free kick. Steve, on that goal, good free kick, bad wall. Do we put that down to the keeper and experience?
Yeah, you got to, unfortunately. The wall is the keeper's responsibility, but it's a learning curve. I'm sure the analysts and the keeper coach they'll be working during the week on where you can line the ball up. Basically, it seems as if you can. I think if they take them maybe even half a step to the left, that wall probably blocks the free kick. But a player of Maddison's quality, you give him that little space to fire it into, and you're giving yourself a real potential problem. And obviously he found that little gap that he could find, and it just doesn't look good from our perspective. But yeah, it's a learning curve, and we've not been punished for it. Fortunately, we've still got the 3 points.
Which is pretty much what Ralph said as well yesterday, I think, Alfie, wasn't it? That these mistakes are going to happen, and it didn't cost us the game. Yeah,
no, he was relieved that it didn't cost the game as well, because for Gavin, he can go home and there's no regret there. He can, like you say, work with the analysts, work with the coaches in the week, and he doesn't have to think, I've cost my team 2 points in my 3rd Premier League game. It's a lesson to learn. And yeah, I echo Steve's thoughts. It could have been dealt with better, but it doesn't matter. And then they've got all 3 points.
The only thing he's cost is his clean sheet bonus.
Clean sheet bonus, yeah. Or anyone that's got him in a fantasy team, yeah.
It's a very obvious example about inexperience of young players, because, apart from training at Manchester City, Bazuna will never have come across a player who can hit a free kick like James Maddison can.
No, not
in a match situation. So he probably thought he had the wall line. He's probably lined up the free kick as he would have done in League One, where no one's going to whip the ball in, like that. And it's the sort of one as a goalkeeper that he wouldn't have seen it until it went round the wall. So once it went round the wall and was on target, he was dead, because he's basically covering the other side or covering the cross. So inexperience. There you go.
But great win, and we're all happy. So that's good.